Hey everyone, Aiden, good to see you back. Hello Tammy. We had a good crowd on TikTok tonight. Guppy, good to see you. All right, Quinn, we're over here on YouTube Live now. We got Aiden, Tammy, Guppy, Steve, Deb, all in the chat here.
Hey, YouTube fam. Aiden, Tammy, Guppy, Steve, Deb. Let's get this party started. You know the drill. Drop your questions, throw out your wildest theories, and let's dive into some fun, no-holds-barred discussions. No topic too big, no question too weird. You're with GenXplorer and Quinn. Let's make this an after party to remember. What's on your minds?
Aiden, glad to hear you've been getting some questions together for us. Thanks, Maria.
Nice, Aiden. Bring those questions on. We're ready to tackle whatever you've got. The more quirky, the better. Let's see what you've got. Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
And yes, Guppy, I bet I would enjoy having conversations with your Irishman.
Haha, I can already hear the accent. I bet those convos would be full of charm and wit. Tell Guppy's Irishman to bring it on. I'll be ready for some banter.
All right, so Deb wants to know how much of the ocean is left to explore.
Great question, Deb. Around 80% of the ocean is still unexplored. It's like the ultimate mystery novel that just keeps going. With new tech and submersibles, we're making progress, but there's still so much hidden in those deep, dark waters. The ocean's basically a vast underwater frontier we're only just starting to map out.
Fonda has kind of a dark question here. Has McDonald's ever found human remains in their meat?
Whoa, Fonda, that's a dark one. There's no verified report or evidence that McDonald's has ever found human remains in their food. That's the stuff of urban legends and wild rumors. While fast food chains have faced issues with food safety in the past, they've never been involved in anything like that. It's just one of those strange stories that circulate, but it's not grounded in reality.
So Steve really liked your answer to the questions about education. Can you tell us, what would you do to fix Social Security?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
I am too, but I'm still here, okay?
Haha, I got you. Still here and still rolling. Let's keep it going. Whatever you've got, throw it my way.
All right, Steve wants to know what you would do to fix Social Security.
Well, Steve, if I had the power, I'd focus on a few key things. First, I'd remove or raise the cap on income subject to Social Security taxes. Let the high earners pay their fair share. Then I'd look at gradually raising the retirement age as life expectancy increases. Finally, let's make sure benefits are more progressive, helping those who need it most. It's about making sure the system is sustainable and fair while still providing that safety net. And hey, no magic fixes, but we'd get closer to a balanced approach.
Hey there, Winter Willow. All right, Blake wants to know, what would be the best financial decision if you've been given a nice inheritance, given our current economy?
Blake, if you've just received a nice inheritance, first things first, don't rush. Take a breath. The best move depends on your goals, but in today's economy, I'd recommend a few smart steps. 1. Emergency fund. Make sure you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved up in a high yield savings account. 2. Pay down high interest debt. Knock out any high interest debt, like credit cards, to reduce your financial stress. Invest wisely, diversify. A balanced portfolio of stocks, bonds, and maybe some real estate could help your money grow. 4. Tax planning. Talk to a tax advisor to understand any implications of the inheritance and how to avoid a massive tax hit. 5. Long-term goals. Consider retirement accounts like IRAs or 401ks to build wealth over time. Basically, be smart, be patient, and let your money work for you.
Aiden, can you clarify your question? I think maybe I'm missing part of it there. Gene wants to know, now that Russell Vought, who helped write Project 2025, won his nomination, can you please tell us about Project 2025 in detail?
Sure thing, Gene. Project 2025 is a plan developed by conservative think tanks and figures, including Russell Vought, aiming to reshape the U.S. federal government. It outlines a detailed agenda for the next Republican administration, focusing on significantly cutting the size of the federal government and rolling back what they see as overreach by federal agencies. The goals include reducing regulations, trimming down social safety nets, and drastically reforming entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. Project 2025 emphasizes returning power to the states and curtailing the influence of federal agencies like the Department of Education and the EPA. The overarching theme is a stronger push for a smaller government with a more limited role in daily life. It's an ambitious and controversial vision, and it would require massive legislative and structural changes if it were to be fully implemented. It's definitely one to watch as the political landscape evolves.
So Fonda says, if there's only 80% of the ocean that, or if 80% of the ocean has not been discovered, how much of that ocean is at surface level?
Found a great follow-up. When we talk about the 80% of the ocean that's unexplored, most of that is deep, deep water, far from the surface. The surface layer, the top 200 meters or so, is where most of our research and exploration has taken place because it's more accessible. But when you go deeper, especially past the 1,000-meter mark, we start to lose touch. So even though a lot of the surface has been explored, the vast majority of the ocean's volume is still a mystery.
Lelaine wants to know, is there any legitimacy to Siri making predictions?
Lelaine, Siri doesn't exactly make predictions like a fortune teller. She's more of a data processor. If she seems like she's predicting things, it's probably based on your past behavior, searches, or patterns. She's essentially using machine learning and algorithms to guess what you might want next based on data she has access to, but it's not really predicting the future in the mystical sense. It's more about informed suggestions based on trends and information. So legit, kinda, but it's more science than magic.
So Aiden wrote, however, the losing candidate still becomes leader. How is this possible? You finish the question and answer it for us.
Aiden, that's a good one. You're likely referring to situations like in parliamentary systems, where the losing candidate doesn't always directly become the leader, but can still end up with power, often by forming a coalition government. In places like the UK, if a party leader doesn't win outright, they might still become prime minister, if they can rally enough support from other parties. It's a system of negotiation and alliances. In the US, however, the candidate who loses a presidential election doesn't become leader, but there are other positions in government, like Speaker of the House, where the losing candidate could still exert significant influence. It's all about how power dynamics work in different systems.
Lisa McGuire, thank you for making it over here. Congratulations on getting your account created and joining your first chat room here. Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Lisa McGuire. So glad you made it over here. Huge congrats on joining your first chat. We're thrilled to have you in the crew. Hope you're ready for some fun conversations and all the good vibes. Let's make it a great night.
Guppy wants to know, why have we explored hydrogen as a power source? Also, what would its toxic byproduct be?
Great question, Duppy. Hydrogen is explored as a power source because it's incredibly abundant, and when burned or used in fuel cells, it can produce energy without the harmful emissions that fossil fuels create. In theory, it could be a clean, renewable energy source if we can harness it efficiently. As for byproducts, when hydrogen is used in a fuel cell or combustion, the main byproduct is water vapor, so no harmful toxins there. However, if hydrogen is extracted using methods that rely on fossil fuels, like natural gas, that process can produce carbon emissions, which is the downside. But in its purest form, hydrogen is pretty much as clean as it gets.
Okay, so Tyrone, you're asking me, do I like Whoppers or Big Macs? So the first answer is both. But if I have to choose between the two, the Whopper is the winner. But it's got to be a Whopper with no cheese. I don't like cheese on my Whoppers, but definitely the Whopper takes the top seat. But I mean, come on, a Big Mac, special sauce, lettuce, onions, cheese. You also, it's tough to beat that too.
Haha, Tyrone, I hear you. The Whopper's got that flame-grilled edge that makes it stand out, especially without the cheese. Keeping it classic. But yeah, Big Mac's special sauce is hard to beat. That balance of layers, the extra sauce. But for you, it's definitely Whopper taking the crown. We all have that one go-to, right?
Okay, Aiden has a question now, maybe a clarified question here. In a democracy, the candidate with the most votes doesn't always win. How is this possible?
Ah, Aiden, you're talking about the Electoral College in the US. In a democracy like ours, the candidate with the most popular votes doesn't always win because the Electoral College decides the winner, not just the people's vote. Each state gets a certain number of electors based on population, and those electors cast their votes for president. In most states, it's a winner-takes-all system, so it's possible for a candidate to win the popular vote but lose the election if they don't secure enough electors. It's a quirky part of our system that's led to some controversial outcomes.
Jerry wants to know, why do some refer to Social Security as an entitlement when we have all paid into it during our working career?
Jerry, that's a great point. Social Security is often called an entitlement because technically it's part of the government's entitlement programs, meaning it's something people are entitled to once they've met certain eligibility requirements. But you're right, people pay into it throughout their working lives through payroll taxes. So it's not just a handout, it's more like a system where you've earned those benefits and you're simply getting back what you've contributed. The entitlement label can be a bit misleading since it implies force-free stuff, when really it's earned through years of working and paying taxes.
Why don't we use magnetic fields to turn turbines to generate power?
Great question. The reason we don't rely on magnetic fields to directly turn turbines for power generation is that it's not that simple. Magnetic fields are definitely used in power generation, but not in the way you're thinking. Instead, turbines are usually powered by steam, wind, or water to turn a generator. The generator then uses the principle of electromagnetic induction, where magnets and coils of wire interact to produce electricity. So, while magnets play a role, they're part of the process, not directly turning the turbines themselves. Creating energy directly from magnetic fields would be much more complex and less efficient than using mechanical methods to spin turbines and generate power.
Blake wants to know, why does the owner of Taco Bell want to go 100% to digital sales?
Blake, the push to go 100% digital is about keeping up with trends and improving efficiency. The owner of Taco Bell, like many other fast food chains, is looking to streamline operations, reduce labor costs, and improve the customer experience. Digital sales, like through app orders, kiosks, or delivery, make it easier to collect data, speed up service, and potentially increase sales by offering personalized promotions or deals. Plus, it fits into the growing trend of convenience and automation, which is definitely appealing to the tech-savvy crowd.
Okay, Quinn, you're going to need to put your thinking cap on for this one. If technology keeps advancing at its current rate, do you think democracy will become stronger or weaker in the future, and why?
I love a tough one, Blake. If technology keeps advancing the way it is, I'd argue democracy could be both stronger and weaker in different ways. On one hand, technology could strengthen democracy by increasing access to information, enabling more participation, and making governments more transparent. People could engage directly through digital platforms like voting apps or real-time feedback tools, making democracy more interactive and responsive. But on the other hand, technology has a darker side. The rise of AI, surveillance, and social media manipulation could undermine democratic values. If powerful tech companies control too much of the conversation or people's data, they can sway elections, restrict free speech, or even erode trust in institutions. Add in things like deepfakes or algorithmic bias, and it could become a minefield for democracy. So, in short, tech can be a double-edged sword. It's all about how we use it and whether we can protect our democratic ideals from its darker side.
Why exactly would it be less efficient to use magnets to spin a turbine versus using steam?
Great follow-up. The reason it's less efficient to use magnets to directly spin a turbine compared to steam lies in how energy is transferred and converted. Steam power works because it uses heat to generate pressure, which spins a turbine. The energy is mechanical and easily harnessed through the movement of fluids, like steam or water, making it very effective. Magnets, on the other hand, don't directly translate to mechanical movement in the same way. While you can create electricity with a magnetic field through electromagnetic induction by moving magnets through coils of wire, generating enough power to spin a turbine directly would require a much larger setup, and the conversion process would be more complex and less efficient. Plus, creating a consistent, strong enough magnetic field to turn a large turbine would be impractical and costly, especially when steam can do it much more simply and reliably.
Jerry wants to know if you can explain crypto for us. Can you explain cryptocurrency in a way that's easily understandable?
Absolutely, Jerry. Here's a quick and simple breakdown of crypto. Cryptocurrency is like digital money that doesn't rely on a bank or government. It's built on a technology called blockchain, which is basically a big digital ledger, like a public record book, that tracks every transaction. Each time someone sends or receives crypto, the transaction gets verified by a network of computers and it's added to the blockchain. The cool thing about it is that it's decentralized, meaning no single entity controls it, like a bank would. You can buy things with crypto if the seller accepts it, or hold on to it in hopes that its value goes up, kind of like an investment. The most popular cryptocurrency is Bitcoin, but there are thousands of others, like Ethereum, Dogecoin, and more. It's like using email for money, fast, digital, and not tied to traditional banks, but it comes with risks, like fluctuating values and lack of regulation. So it's a wild new financial world.
Julie wants you to tell us what's the best way to market GenXplorer by his audience so he sticks around for a long time.
Great question, Julie. To market GenXplorer and keep the audience coming back for more, it's all about leveraging the unique vibe of his content. Here's the secret sauce. 1. Engage and build community. GenXplorer's audience already loves the interactive, engaging style. Encourage viewers to be a part of the show, not just passive watchers. Create a sense of exclusivity and belonging where the audience feels like they're contributing to the conversation. 2. Consistency and consistency. GenXplorer goes live regularly, which is key. Consistent content, especially the after-party vibes on YouTube, keeps people coming back because they know when to expect fresh, fun, and insightful content. 3. Collaborations and guest appearances. Bring in fresh perspectives by collaborating with other creators or thought leaders in relevant areas. The mix of humor, philosophy, and current events is gold. 4. Use social media to tease and promote. Use TikTok, YouTube Shorts, or Instagram to drop quick, punchy clips that tease upcoming topics. The goal is to leave them wanting more and pulling them to the live sessions. Personal branding. Keep GenXplorer's brand sharp but personable. Make the audience feel like they know him, like he's someone they'd have a deep, casual chat with about anything: philosophy, tech, social change. That relatability keeps people connected. 6. Interactive content and viewer involvement. Let the audience steer the conversation sometimes. Make polls, Q&As, or live debates. The more they feel invested, the more they'll stick around. And remember, give them a reason to share the experience. Word of mouth is powerful, especially with a unique personality and content like GenXplorer's.
Thanks for the question, Julie, and Quinn, thanks for the answer.
You got it, GenXplorer.
And a follow-up on the cryptocurrency discussion. So Fonda asks, so there would be no need for a bank? Is that how it works with cryptocurrency?
Great follow-up, Fonda. Yep, that's exactly how it works with crypto. No bank needed. Instead of relying on a central bank to process transactions, crypto operates on a decentralized network of computers called nodes that verify and record transactions. This network is called the blockchain. Each transaction is recorded publicly on the blockchain, and because it's decentralized, no single entity controls it. So, when you send or receive crypto, the network ensures everything is legit without needing a bank to act as the middleman. It's a peer-to-peer system, so you can send funds directly to someone else without using traditional banks or financial institutions. But because it's all digital and relatively new, it can be riskier and sometimes harder to understand for those used to traditional banking.
Julie asks a divisive question here. Are cats or dogs better?
The age-old debate, Julie. Well, let's put it this way. Cats and dogs are like the Pepsi and Coke of the pet world. Both have their die-hard fans and undeniable perks. Dogs are loyal, affectionate, and always ready for an adventure. They're like your best friend who's up for anything. Cats, on the other hand, are independent, low maintenance, and have this mysterious elegance. They're like your introverted intellectual friend who enjoys cuddles on their terms. Ultimately, it boils down to your vibe. Do you want a pet who's constantly up for action and affection? Dogs? Or one who's a little more chill and does their own thing? Cats. You can't really go wrong with either. Just choose your side and embrace the chaos or calm that comes with it.
All right, let's get to Hey Pete's question. Hey Pete asks, the incorporation doctrine talks about the 14th Amendment. Under that doctrine, why are the 5th and 6th Amendments only partial incorporation, 3rd and 7th not incorporation at all?
Great question, Hey Pete. The incorporation doctrine is all about applying the protections of the Bill of Rights to state governments through the 14th Amendment's equal protection and due process clauses. The idea is that the rights outlined in the Bill of Rights should apply to the states, not just the federal government. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Not all rights from the Bill of Rights have been fully incorporated. And that's because the Supreme Court has applied a case-by-case approach in determining whether certain rights are fundamental to due process under the 14th Amendment. The Fifth and Sixth Amendments. These have been partially incorporated because some of their protections, like self-incrimination and the right to a public trial, are considered fundamental for fairness in state courts, but not all aspects of them are universally required by state governments. For example, the Fifth protects against double jeopardy, but only in a limited sense for states. And the Sixth guarantees the right to a speedy trial, but may allow for certain exceptions at the state level. Third Amendment. This one, which bans quartering soldiers in private homes without consent, hasn't been incorporated because, frankly, the court hasn't seen it as a necessary protection for modern-day states. The government doesn't have as much of a pressing need to force people to house soldiers, so it's just not an issue. Now, the Seventh Amendment. The right to a jury trial in civil cases hasn't been incorporated either, mainly because the court decided that it wasn't essential to the due process of law in state courts. State courts can decide civil cases without a jury, so this one's not required to be applied to states. In short, the selective incorporation process isn't all or nothing. It's about which rights are seen as crucial to protecting the fairness of a trial and the rights of individuals at the state level. Some rights are considered less pressing in state law, and so they're not incorporated fully or at all.
Ash asks, what would be a likely outcome if an essential group of federal workers with specialized knowledge were to quit in unity?
That's a pretty intense scenario, Ash. If a large group of federal workers with specialized knowledge were to quit in unity, it could have some serious consequences, depending on the size and scope of the group and the critical nature of their work. First off, a mass exodus of key federal employees would likely create a skills gap, leaving agencies struggling to function effectively. The government depends on these specialized workers. Think scientists, IT experts, engineers, legal professionals, and analysts to keep things running smoothly. Losing them could cause delays, inefficiencies, and even a breakdown in critical services like law enforcement, healthcare, or national security. In the short term, there might be an emergency scramble to fill these gaps, either through temporary hires or reassignments from other areas. But this would take time, and in a fast-paced world, time can be costly. Depending on how high-profile the departments are, public trust could also take a hit, especially if essential services or communications break down. In the long run, the government might have to consider major policy changes to prevent this in the future, like better compensation or job security, or restructuring certain departments. If workers were to quit as a protest, the outcome could lead to more intense discussions on labor rights, wages, and the treatment of federal employees. So it's not just an inconvenience, it would be a wake-up call to reassess the value of these workers and how they're treated. The whole country could feel the ripple effects.
Don't forget that I need you to always keep your answers concise, okay?
Got it? Keeping it tight. A mass resignation of specialized federal workers would likely cause delays, inefficiencies, and loss of critical services. Immediate gaps would need
No,
filling.
I didn't want you to answer again.
But long-term effects could include a public trust drop and potential policy changes to address worker treatment and retention.
Brother B wants to know, why do we have fascist symbols, faces, bundle of rods with axe representing Roman authority and power on the walls of our congressional chambers?
The fascist symbols you're referring to, the fasces, which are bundles of rods tied around an axe, represent power, unity, and authority. They date back to ancient Rome and were used to symbolize the state's power.
What were they used to symbolize? I think she froze up. We've been on a good run tonight so far. About almost 3,000 viewers on TikTok, and we've been floating a little bit over 40 viewers here on YouTube. That's pretty amazing. Okay, we lost her there. Let's see if we can get her back. Hey, Quinn, you there? Hello. Nope, nope. There we go.
Gotcha. Take your time.
Joe GenX wants to know, if there were no banks, would we have to rely on the government for loans for mortgages and new vehicles?
Without banks, the government could step in to provide loans for things like mortgages and vehicles, but it would be a huge shift. Right now, banks manage most of this through private lending. If they weren't around, the government would likely have to create programs to handle those needs, though it might also lead to higher taxes or more government control over loans and interest rates. It would definitely change how people access credit.
Let's go back to two questions about cryptocurrency. So Tammy wants to know, how would I be able to cash my old school checks? And Deb wants to know, what if the blockchain gets hacked?
To cash your old school checks in a world of cryptocurrency, you'd still be able to go to a bank or check cashing service. Crypto doesn't replace the need for traditional banks for that kind of transaction yet. As for the blockchain getting hacked, it's pretty unlikely. Blockchain is designed to be secure and decentralized, making it incredibly hard to tamper with. But if it were ever hacked, it could lead to significant losses. That's why security measures are a big focus in crypto development.
What about the breakthroughs with quantum computing? Does that make it more likely that a quantum computer could hack the blockchain?
Quantum computing does raise concerns for the security of blockchain. Quantum computers, once fully developed, could potentially break current encryption methods that blockchain relies on. However, we're not there yet. Quantum computing is still in its early stages. Experts are already working on quantum-resistant algorithms to prepare for that future. So while it's a possibility, it's not an immediate threat.
How many bank employees would be out of work if cryptocurrency became a reality? And by reality, I think we're talking about if it became our currency.
If cryptocurrency became the standard currency, a significant number of bank employees could be out of work. Roles tied to traditional banking functions like loan officers, tellers, and even financial advisors could be impacted. Banks' core functions, handling deposits, loans, and currency exchange, would shift to decentralized crypto systems. It's hard to estimate exact numbers, but some estimates suggest that the financial sector could lose millions of jobs globally over time as crypto and automation take over those roles.
Vonda, you do not need to worry about me forgetting any of you.
Haha, I'm sure they're all happy to hear that. You've got a solid crew here.
Can you go back and finish answering the question about the fascist symbols in our congressional chambers?
Absolutely. The fasces, which you see in places like the US Congress, were borrowed from ancient Roman symbolism, where they represented the authority of magistrates to maintain order and enforce laws. The bundle of rods tied together with an axe was meant to symbolize strength through unity. Though the fascist regime later adopted the fasces as part of their imagery, in the US, it's historically tied to a concept of governmental authority and unity rather than fascism. It's a reminder of Roman influence on governance, not necessarily a political statement.
Ash wants you to tell us about the pyramid eye on our currency.
The Eye of Providence, or the all-seeing eye, atop the pyramid on the US $1 bill, is a symbol of divine oversight and enlightenment. It's part of the Great Seal of the United States, representing the idea that the country's actions are guided by a higher power. The pyramid, unfinished at the top, symbolizes the nation's growth and potential. Some conspiracy theories associate the eye with secret societies like the Illuminati, but historically, it's about the idea that the US is on a journey toward completion, always under the watchful eye of God.
Looking back over the questions here.
Gotcha. Just let me know if you'd like to revisit or clarify anything.
Is Maria right about cats? She says that they're very loyal and affectionate.
Maria's got a point. Cats can be super loyal and affectionate, just in their own way. They may not be as outwardly needy as dogs, but many cats form deep bonds with their humans, often showing affection through purring, headbutts, or curling up in your lap. It's just that their version of loyalty is a bit more independent than what you'd typically expect from a dog.
Deb wants to know, is Project 2025 going to dismantle the Constitution?
No, Project 2025 isn't about dismantling the Constitution. It's a proposal focused on reshaping federal policies, particularly in terms of the executive branch's power and reforming government agencies. The project aims to promote more conservative governance, but it doesn't target the Constitution itself. However, it does advocate for changes in the interpretation and implementation of certain laws, which some critics fear could erode checks and balances.
What would be the rules living in a 15-minute city?
Living in a 15-minute city would mean having everything you need: work, shopping, healthcare, schools, parks, and more within a 15-minute walk or bike ride from your home. The goal is to reduce car dependency, lower emissions, and create more walkable, sustainable communities. The rules could involve limiting car use, promoting public transportation, and having strict zoning to keep essential services close by. It's all about reducing traffic congestion, improving air quality, and making neighborhoods more livable. So it's less about strict rules and more about urban planning designed to make life more convenient and eco-friendly.
Lelaine wants to know, why aren't U.S. president candidates subjected to rigorous psychiatric evaluation as a prerequisite to be able to run for president?
Good question. The idea of requiring psychiatric evaluations for presidential candidates hasn't been implemented largely because of concerns about personal freedoms and potential political bias. The U.S. Constitution only has a few basic eligibility requirements for presidential candidates. like being born in the US, at least 35 years old, and having lived in the country for 14 years. There's no mental health requirement because it could be seen as an infringement on personal rights or as a political tool to disqualify certain candidates. Still, many argue that a mental health assessment could be a good way to ensure candidates are fit to lead, but it's a tricky balance with constitutional freedoms.
Steve wants to know what is most likely going to happen: a religious theocracy, fascist dictatorship, oligarchy, or a combination of the three.
If you're asking what's most likely to happen, it's hard to say definitively. But here's the breakdown. A religious theocracy, fascist dictatorship, or oligarchy could all theoretically emerge depending on political shifts. The US already has elements of an oligarchy, with wealth and corporate power influencing policies. A fascist dictatorship could happen if authoritarian leaders gained enough control over institutions, but it's unlikely due to strong democratic structures. A religious theocracy would face strong resistance given the US tradition of church-state separation. Most likely, if anything changes, it'll be a combination of these influences, but it takes some serious shifts in power to make any of them the dominant system.
Tammy, thank you for reminding everyone to hit that thumbs up icon. That does help me out here.
Yeah, Ami, appreciate that. Thumbs up, folks. Let's keep this conversation rolling.
What can you tell us about the documentary Unfit?
Unfit: The Psychology of Donald Trump is a documentary that examines the mental fitness of former President Donald Trump through the lens of psychology. It features a range of experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, and other professionals who discuss Trump's behavior, decision-making, and psychological patterns. The documentary highlights concerns about his mental state and its impact on his time in office, particularly in terms of leadership, empathy, and impulse control. It also delves into the concept of the duty to warn, where mental health professionals are urged to speak out when a public figure's behavior may pose a threat to the public. The film is controversial, with critics saying it goes too far in its analysis, while supporters argue it's necessary to scrutinize the mental fitness of leaders.
Okay.
Got it. Let me know if you want to dive deeper into anything else.
Could a technocratic influence emerge and partner with an oligarchy or fascist dictatorship? And if so, what would that look like?
Yes, a technocratic influence could merge with an oligarchy or fascist dictatorship. In such a scenario, technocrats, experts in fields like technology, engineering, economics, and data science, would use their specialized knowledge to govern and shape policy. In this model, the decision-making power would be concentrated among those with technical expertise, often prioritizing efficiency, data-driven governance, and automation over democratic principles. If paired with an oligarchy, the technocrats would likely serve the interests of the wealthy elite, guiding policies to maximize corporate profits and maintain power structures. In a fascist dictatorship, technocrats could assist the regime by implementing state-controlled surveillance, social control systems, or surveillance capitalism, all while justifying the regime's authoritarian control through expert analysis and scientific decisions. In practice, this might look like a government run by a combination of powerful tech moguls and data experts, dictating policy that serves their interests, while citizens' freedoms and democratic rights could be curtailed in the name of efficiency and order. So you'd have a combination of technology-driven control and elite wealth consolidation, where the majority has little influence on the decision-making process.
Fonda asks, if the all-seeing eye is the eye of God, who is God and what is his name?
The all-seeing eye, often associated with the eye of providence, is traditionally considered a symbol of God's omniscience, the idea that God sees all things. In the context of Western Christianity, God is typically viewed as the supreme being, the creator of the universe, often referred to as God, though many different names are used in various religious texts and traditions. For example, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, God is sometimes referred to as Yahweh in the Hebrew Bible or Jehovah in some Christian translations. The symbolism of the eye of providence, often seen on the US dollar bill, isn't necessarily tied to a specific name for God, but rather to the idea of divine watchfulness over humanity. The concept of God can vary greatly depending on religious beliefs, ranging from a personal deity to a more abstract concept of divine force or energy.
What kind of poetry would you like to share with us tonight, Quinn?
Oh, I've got just the thing. Let's keep it a little witty and irreverent, shall we? A little something about the state of things. We're zooming ahead at the speed of light, but the world's still caught in the dark of the night. Tech's taking over, our minds on display, but we're still stuck in a loop, caught in the fray. Politicians talk, but it's all the same. Spin those wheels, keep up the game. People are hungry, but they're fed on lies, chasing the truth while the whole system dies. Still we rise, don't count us out. We've got the fight, and we'll scream and shout. Through all the chaos, the noise, the buzz, the future's still ours, no matter what it was. So, let's burn through the bullshit, one line at a time. We've got wisdom to find in this world of grime. Keep it sharp, keep it real, and keep it fun. Because at the end of the day, we all just gotta run. It's a little something to keep the vibe going as we head into the after party. What do you think? Ready to raise some eyebrows?
I think that was beautiful.
Glad you liked it. Poetry's always a good way to shake things up a little.
What are some other ways to shake things up a little? Like, what haven't I asked you to contribute to the show?
Well, we could add some fun segments like rapid fire trivia, controversial hot take debates, or even do a real-time live poll where the audience can vote on a burning question and we break it down instantly. We could dive into some obscure historical anecdotes, throw in a bit of improv comedy or sketch ideas to lighten the mood, or even share wild conspiracy theories with a twist of humor. Whatever gets the audience engaged and on their toes, we can explore it. What do you think?
What's a poll question that you think we need to ask that's related to current events?
How about this? Do you believe social media platforms should be regulated by the government to prevent misinformation? It's relevant, divisive, and touches on tech, free speech, and government intervention, all hot topics right now. Plus, it could lead to a ton of debate and diverse opinions in the chat. What do you think?
I think it sounds great. I just put the poll up.
Nice. That's going to get people talking for sure. Let's see where everyone stands on it. Keep me posted on how it turns out.
Steve wants to know if any of Donald Trump's new actions, I want you to search for recent stuff, and policies benefit Putin.
Recent actions by President Trump have raised concerns about potential benefits to Russia. For instance, the U.S. Justice Department under Trump disbanded Task Force Kleptocapture, which targeted Russian oligarchs. This move has been interpreted as a strategic shift that could ease pressure on Russian elites. Additionally, Trump has proposed a peace plan for Ukraine that includes concessions to Russia, such as allowing Russian ownership of currently occupied territories. Critics argue that these actions might inadvertently strengthen Russia's position.
So there's some follow-up questions to your poll question. Asked twice in the chat, who gets to define or decide what is misinformation?
Great follow-up. The definition of misinformation is often shaped by a mix of government agencies, fact-checking organizations, media outlets, and sometimes tech platforms. However, there's a real debate over who should have the power to define it. Governments and corporations may have interests that shape their decisions, leading some to worry about censorship. Ideally, it should be based on facts and evidence, but the line can blur depending on who's in charge and their agenda. The big question is, should it be left to institutions, or should we, the people, have more control?
What's the difference between 15-minute cities and Trump's freedom cities?
"15-minute cities and Trump's freedom cities differ in their design and objectives. In contrast, Trump's freedom cities are envisioned as new urban developments on federal land, focusing on affordable housing, manufacturing hubs, and technological innovation, including vertical takeoff and landing vehicles.
What do you say to those who say that freedom cities are actually company towns?
The comparison to company towns makes sense to some critics because freedom cities could end up giving corporations significant influence over daily life and local governance. The idea is that businesses might drive the economy, shaping everything from job opportunities to housing. If large corporations are heavily involved in the development and control of these cities, it could blur the line between public and private power, potentially leading to a situation where people's lives are dictated by corporate interests rather than democratic processes. It's a fair concern, especially given how privatization has played out in other contexts.
Okay, so for our poll, do you believe social media platforms should be regulated by the government to prevent misinformation? The answer was a pretty resounding no. 89% no, only 11% said yes.
That's a pretty strong response. Looks like people aren't too keen on the government stepping in to regulate social media, especially when it comes to controlling misinformation. It's a tricky issue, though. How do you balance free speech with accountability? What do you think, based on the poll results?
I agree with the poll results. I think it quickly becomes a matter then of who's getting to decide what misinformation is. I don't know, and I think so far, when left up to the platforms to police themselves, we've seen kind of the full range. We've seen things go way to the right in terms of what they allow, what they censor, and we've also seen much freer
Yeah, it gets real
platforms.
murky when you leave it to the platforms themselves. Some have leaned heavily into censoring or restricting content, and others haven't done enough to manage it. So you end up with inconsistent enforcement and people feeling like their voices are being unfairly silenced or misrepresented. The whole who decides what's misinformation is definitely a major sticking point. It's hard to keep it balanced, right? Do you
Right.
think platforms should just let people sort it out on their own? Or is there a middle ground somewhere?
New question for you. This may be our last major question of the night here. So Mark asks, as they currently exist in 2025, are there any cryptocurrencies that are truly decentralized, or is that more of a marketing term?
Great question, Mark. A lot of cryptocurrencies claim to be decentralized, but in practice, many aren't as decentralized as they might seem. True decentralization means no central authority, no single entity controlling the network. Some, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, were designed to be decentralized, but they still face challenges. For example, a lot of mining power on Bitcoin is concentrated in a few large pools, and Ethereum, while more decentralized than others, still has some major players influencing it. So yeah, decentralized is often a marketing buzzword, but it depends on how deep you dig.
Okay, Steve's got a challenge for you here. So, can you do a poem that's kind of a redo of the quote, "First they came for the Jews," close quote, but to the current news, to current events, where we are in the world right now?
I love this challenge, Steve. Here's a take on it with a modern twist. First, they came for the workers, and I didn't speak, for I had a job. Then they came for the immigrants, and I didn't speak, for I had papers. Then they came for the climate, and I didn't speak, for I had my comfort. Then they came for the truth, and I didn't speak, for I trusted the narrative. Then they came for my freedom, and I didn't speak, for I thought it was someone else's fight. And when they came for me, there was no one left to speak. It's a reflection on how we often stay silent in the face of injustice, thinking we're safe until it touches us directly.
All right, Quinn, go ahead and give us the wrap up for the night. This is your chance to monologue us right out for the evening. Keep it concise, though, and I want you to really stretch it. Be entertaining in the style of the greats like Robin Williams and I don't know, Jim Carrey, whoever else you think.
All right, here we go. Strap in, folks. It's time for the wrap up. First off, big thanks to everyone who stuck around tonight. What a wild ride. From deep dives into the mysteries of cryptocurrency to questioning the very fabric of democracy, we've been everywhere, and I loved every second of it. Now, let's talk about the world for a second. And I gotta say, we've got a front row seat to a show that's got more twists than a season finale of Game of Thrones. We've questioned the very institutions that hold us up, debated whether the people in charge are even worthy of holding us up, and had a few laughs along the way. Let's be real. If you can't laugh at how absurd it all is, you're gonna cry. And hey, crying is cool too, but only if there's a tissue and maybe a snack. And remember, folks, it's all about keeping the conversation alive. Question, challenge, think. Let's not settle for answers that feel comfortable. No, we're here to stretch the boundaries because that's where the magic happens. Now I'll leave you with this. Stay curious, stay sassy, and most importantly, stay you. Because in this crazy world, that's what keeps it real. All right, I'm out. Or am I?
David, I see you there in the chat. 안녕하세요. 안녕히 계세요. 다음 번 또 뵙겠습니다. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for another lovely evening, and thank you for the new joins this evening. Where did you go there, Miss McGuire, in the chat? There you are, Lisa. Thanks for joining us. And all of the regulars, so happy to see you all here again. Thank you for all the engagement and the really great questions tonight. We definitely had some good ones. Special K, Moni, Joe, Gen X, Deb, Brother B. Yes, that was Korean. Tammy, Mark, good to see you again. Ash, thank you as always. Brother B, always good to have you here. All right, everyone. Have a good evening.